A wealthy CEO makes a cruel joke when he finds a desperate mother scavenging for food scraps near his company's lavish holiday celebration. "Organize the trash, and I'll give you the leftovers," he says mockingly. But when he discovers this woman is the mother of his own twin daughters, children he never knew existed, his world crumbles. What starts as a moment of heartless arrogance becomes a journey of redemption as a broken family fights to heal old wounds and find their way back to each other. Some mistakes can destroy everything, but love has the power to rebuild what seemed lost forever. Before we begin this incredible journey together, I want you to know how much your support means. If this story touches your heart, please hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your engagement helps me bring you more powerful stories of hope and transformation. The December wind cut through downtown Chicago like a blade as Marcus Sterling stepped onto the marble steps of his corporate headquarters. At 34, he commanded respect in every boardroom, his steel-gray eyes and sharp jawline earning him the nickname the Ice King. Tonight, he wore a custom Armani tuxedo while 300 elite guests celebrated another record-breaking year at Sterling Industries' Christmas Gala on the 42nd floor. "Mr. Sterling," called James Morrison, his head of security. "Sir, there's a vagrant going through our disposal units. Should I call police?" Marcus paused, irritated. "During our Christmas party, I'll handle this myself." They walked to the service area, where several industrial dumpsters stood beneath dim security lights. Marcus saw her, a woman in a worn brown coat, dark hair escaping from a knitted hat. She carefully lifted items from the containers, examining them before placing them in a tattered canvas bag. "Ma'am, this is private property," Marcus called out with authority. The woman froze, hands clutched around a half-eaten dinner roll. She turned toward them, and Marcus felt something strange flutter in his chest. Even in dim light, even gaunt from hunger, there was something familiar about her features. She was younger than expected, late 20s, with large brown eyes holding both shame and defiance. "I'm sorry," she whispered. The food was going to waste, and my daughters." She trailed off, clutching the bag closer. "Daughters?" Marcus asked, surprised by his curiosity. "Yes, sir. They're 7 years old, twins. We haven't eaten since yesterday morning. And I thought maybe there would be leftover food from your party." 7 years old, Marcus repeated, studying her face more carefully. "And you thought you'd find dinner in our garbage?" Anger flashed across her features. "Your guests threw away enough food to feed my family for a week. Perfectly good food that will rot while children go hungry." Marcus found himself impressed by her boldness. An idea formed, cruel perhaps, but the evening's champagne had sharpened his sense of superiority. "Tell you what," he said with a cold smile, "if you can organize all this trash properly, separate recyclables, stack cardboard neatly, I'll have the catering staff pack up real leftovers for you." The woman stared at him, pride warring with desperation. "You want me to organize your garbage?" "Consider it fair trade. Honest work for a good meal." Marcus checked his Rolex. 30 minutes. If you do satisfactory work, you eat well tonight." She set down her bag and looked at the 3 overflowing dumpsters. "And you give me your word you'll provide real food for my daughters?" "You have my word," Marcus replied, wondering if he meant it. The woman pulled off her gloves and began working with surprising efficiency, sorting through waste with the focus of someone who had nothing left to lose. Marcus retreated to observe, oddly mesmerized by her graceful determination despite the degrading task. "Time," he called at 30 minutes. The dumpsters stood in perfect order, better than professional crews usually managed. Marcus called the catering manager for leftover food as the woman waited, dignity intact despite what she'd endured. "You're very good at organizing," he said while they waited. "I used to be an event planner before things changed." "What happened?" She looked at him with those brown eyes. seeming to see through his expensive exterior. "Life happened, Mr. Sterling. Sometimes the world decides you don't matter as much as you thought." The catering staff arrived with 2 large bags of food. As she accepted them, Marcus called out, "What's your name?" She paused at the edge of light, snow falling between them. "Sarah. Sarah Williams." Then she disappeared into the Chicago night, leaving Marcus with the strangest feeling that his perfectly ordered world had just shifted. For the first time in years, Marcus Sterling felt something he'd almost forgotten: shame. 3 days after the Christmas gala, Marcus sat in his corner office, unable to concentrate. Rebecca Martinez, his longtime assistant, noticed his distraction as she went over quarterly projections. "Mr. Sterling, are you feeling all right? You've seemed distant since the Christmas party." "I'm fine," he lied, then found himself asking, "Rebecca, do you think about the people affected by our developments? Families who can't afford to stay when we gentrify neighborhoods?" Rebecca raised an eyebrow. "That's not typically how business works, sir. We're providing better housing, improving communities." Her words rang hollow. 3 nights ago, he'd watched a woman dig through garbage to feed her children. Where was the progress in that? His phone buzzed with a text from his mother. "Still planning to skip Christmas dinner again this year, darling?" Every year, Eleanor Sterling hosted elaborate Christmas Eve dinner at the family estate. Every year, Marcus found excuses not to attend. The last time was 8 years ago, right after his breakup with, Marcus stopped the thought, ancient history. "Rebecca, I need you to compile a list of local food banks and homeless shelters," he said suddenly. "Organizations helping families with children." "Should I contact our PR department about a donation announcement?" "No announcements. This is private." Marcus turned to the window. "Also, look into Sarah Williams, late 20s, twin daughters age 7, lives in Chicago." After Rebecca left, Marcus found himself driving through neighborhoods surrounding his office building. The contrast was jarring. Less than 5 miles from his gleaming headquarters, he passed boarded storefronts, overcrowded apartments, and corner stores with barred windows. At a red light, he watched a young mother push a stroller while holding a small boy's hand, both bundled in worn clothes. The scene made him think of Sarah's twins, 2 7-year-old girls he'd never met but couldn't stop imagining. That evening, in his penthouse overlooking the lake, Marcus poured 25-year-old scotch and stood on his balcony. Somewhere out there, Sarah Williams was putting her daughters to bed, probably in a cramped apartment with thin walls. The thought made him sick. His phone rang, his mother's name. He let it go to voicemail, as he had for 3 years. Eleanor represented everything he'd been escaping: suffocating expectations, shallow social circles, the belief that money could excuse any behavior. But tonight, standing alone in expensive isolation, Marcus wondered if he'd become someone his younger self would despise. The next morning, Rebecca arrived with a manila folder. "I found information about Sarah Williams." Marcus's heart raced as he opened it. The driver's license photo from 2019 showed the same face, though younger and more hopeful. Sarah Elizabeth Williams, 29, born in Springfield, Illinois. Event coordinator until Premier Planning Solutions went bankrupt in 2020. She filed for unemployment in March 2020, but benefits ran out months ago. No current employment. She's lived at the same Humboldt Park address for 3 years, a 1-bedroom apartment. What about the father? No marriage record. Birth certificates list father as unknown. "There's one more thing," Rebecca said carefully. "Sarah Williams used to be Sarah Elizabeth Chen. She changed her name legally in 2017. Marcus's blood turned to ice. Sarah Chen. The name he'd avoided for 8 years. The memory buried so deep, he sometimes convinced himself it was a dream. "The twin daughters," Marcus whispered. "When were they born?" September 15th, 2016. Emma and Lucy Williams. The math hit him like a freight train. If Sarah had been pregnant when he left in January 2016, if she'd tried to tell him something important. Marcus stood so quickly his chair rolled backward. Get David Chen on the phone. Private investigator. Tell him I need him here within the hour. What should I tell him this is regarding? Marcus stared at Sarah's photo, seeing now what he'd been too blind to recognize in the dark parking lot, the same eyes that looked back at him every morning, the same stubborn jawline passed down through sterling generations. Tell him I need to know if I'm a father. David Chen arrived within 45 minutes, carrying his leather briefcase and wearing the serious expression that made him Chicago's most sought-after private investigator. As Sarah's distant cousin, he'd helped Marcus with corporate investigations while maintaining strict professional boundaries. Mr. Sterling, Rebecca said this was urgent and personal. Marcus slid the manila folder across his desk, watching David's face as he opened it. The investigator's expression didn't change, examining Sarah's photo, but Marcus caught a slight tightening around his eyes. I need you to investigate Sarah Williams, formerly Sarah Chen, specifically her twin daughters, their paternity. David set the folder down slowly. I should disclose that Sarah Chen is my cousin. There could be a conflict of interest. That's exactly why I need you, Marcus interrupted. You have access, connections, and I trust your discretion. What exactly are you asking me to find out? Marcus felt the words stick in his throat. I dated Sarah Chen 8 years ago, left her in January 2016. Her daughters were born that September. I need to know if those children are mine. The silence was deafening. Through his windows, Marcus saw normal Chicago bustle, people living their lives, unaware his world was potentially crumbling. Have you spoken to Sarah about this? David asked carefully. I didn't know it was her until yesterday. We encountered each other, but she was using Williams, and I didn't recognize her at first. Marcus rubbed his temples. I humiliated her, David. If these children are mine. If she was trying to tell me she was pregnant 8 years ago, and I walked away. I'll need a few days. DNA testing requires cooperation from Sarah or the children, unless you want this done covertly. I don't care about legal implications. I need the truth. That evening, Marcus drove to Humboldt Park, to Sarah's address. The neighborhood was small bungalows and 3-story apartment buildings, children's toys scattered in snow-covered yards. Sarah's building was a converted house with a narrow porch and peeling paint. At 6:30, he saw them. 2 little girls burst through the front door, bundled in colorful but well-worn winter coats. They ran into the small yard and began building a snowman, their laughter carrying like music across the quiet street. Marcus's breath caught. Even from distance, even with winter hats covering their faces, the resemblance was unmistakable. The way the taller girl stood with hands on hips when her sister knocked over their snowman. The determined set of the smaller girl's jaw rebuilding it, the Sterling family's stubborn streak passed down through generations. Sarah emerged carrying 2 cups of hot chocolate, wearing the same brown coat, but looking more like the woman he remembered falling in love with. Her laugh at something one of the girls said sent recognition shock through him. Mama, is this tall enough? The smaller girl called. I think it needs a hat, Sarah said, kneeling to examine their snowman. Emma, run upstairs and get Daddy Bear. He can be our snowman's hat. Marcus watched Emma, his daughter, his mind whispered, race inside. The casual mention of Daddy Bear made his chest tight. Lucy looked up at Sarah with unmistakably sterling grey eyes. Mama, why don't we have a daddy like kids at school? Sarah's hand stilled. We have each other, sweetheart. That's what matters. But Sarah at school says her daddy takes her ice skating. Don't you want a daddy? I want you and Emma happy and safe. And we are, aren't we? Lucy nodded, but Marcus saw questions in her small face, the same curiosity that had driven him to build his first business at 16. The domestic scene was so perfect, so complete without him, that Marcus felt like viewing his life through a window, looking at everything he'd lost without knowing it existed. His phone buzzed with his mother's text. "Marcus, darling, I'm worried. It's been 3 years since we've had Christmas together. Please come home this year." For the first time in 8 years, he wanted to call her back. As he watched Sarah help the girls inside, Marcus knew there was only one person he needed to talk to. The conversation he should have had 8 years ago. The truth had been hiding in plain sight. 2 little girls with grey eyes building snowmen in a yard he should have been helping with. A woman who'd loved him enough to let him go rather than trap him. Marcus Sterling had no idea how to fix the biggest mistake of his life, but he had to try. The DNA results arrived at David Chen's office on Friday afternoon, sealed in a manila envelope that seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds. Marcus stared at it across David's desk for a full minute before finding courage to reach for it. "Are you sure you want to do this alone?" David asked. "This kind of revelation—" "Just tell me," Marcus interrupted. "Are they mine?" David's expression was answer enough, but he nodded. 99.97% certainty. "Emma and Lucy Williams are your daughters." The words hit like a physical blow. Marcus had known from the moment he saw those grey eyes, but knowing and having confirmation were different kinds of devastation. "There's more," David continued quietly. "Sarah tried contacting you several times in early 2016, called your office, sent emails, even showed up at your building once. Your assistant Patricia Kowalski was instructed to block all contact." Marcus closed his eyes, remembering. He'd been so focused on the Henderson deal, so determined not to let emotions derail his career. When Patricia mentioned his persistent ex-girlfriend, he told her to handle it however she saw fit. "Sarah was 3 months pregnant when you left. She was trying to tell you about the pregnancy for weeks before you ended the relationship." The office felt like it was closing in. Marcus thought about all the nights he'd worked late while his daughters were being born, taking first steps, saying first words. 7 years of bedtime stories and Christmas mornings he'd missed because he was too cowardly to face love. "What else?" Marcus asked, though he wasn't sure he could handle more revelations. "Sarah worked as event planner until 2020, when pandemic hit. Lost her job, used savings trying to keep the girls in their school district. She's been working odd jobs, cleaning offices at night, catering when available. The apartment rent is 2 months behind." Marcus looked up sharply. "She's being evicted?" Landlord filed papers. 30 days to catch up on payments or they're out. The thought of his daughters homeless made Marcus physically sick. While he'd been accumulating wealth he couldn't spend in lifetimes, his children had been one paycheck from disaster. "I need their address again." "Mr. Sterling, maybe you should think about this. Plan what you're going to say. I've been planning for 8 years without knowing it. Time to stop planning and start acting." 20 minutes later, Marcus stood outside apartment 1B, hand raised to knock. Through thin walls, he heard domestic life, children's voices, clatter of dishes, Sarah's gentle corrections about homework. He knocked before losing his nerve. Sounds went quiet. Soft footsteps approached. "Who is it?" Sarah's voice was cautious. "Marcus Sterling, from the other night. I need to talk to you." Longer silence, multiple locks being undone. The door opened a crack, chain in place, Sarah's brown eyes peering out. "Mr. Sterling, how did you get this address?" "Sarah, please, I know who you are. I know about Emma and Lucy. We need to talk." The door closed, chain removed. When it opened again, Sarah stood in jeans and oversized sweater, hair in a ponytail. She looked exactly as he remembered, and completely different. Older, worn, but with strength that hadn't been there 8 years ago. "You know," she said quietly. "Not a question. I know they're my daughters. I know I left when you were trying to tell me you were pregnant. I know I've been the worst kind of fool." Sarah's eyes filled with tears she didn't let fall. "What do you want, Marcus?" "Mama?" A small voice from inside. "Who's at the door?" Sarah's expression shifted to protective mode. "Just a minute, sweetheart. Stay in the living room." She stepped outside, closing the door. They faced each other on the narrow porch, December air bitter around them. "They don't know about you," Sarah said without preamble. "I never told them who their father was because I didn't want them wondering why they weren't good enough for you to stay." Each word was a knife. "Sarah, if I had known, would it have mattered? You made it clear I wasn't what you wanted. You left a note, Marcus, after 2 years together, after talking about marriage. You left me a note. I want to make this right. I want to know my daughters, be part of their lives. Help?" Sarah's laugh was bitter. "Where was your help when I was working 3 jobs while pregnant? When I was in labor 18 hours with no one? When Emma had pneumonia and I couldn't afford time off? I know I can't change the past. No, you can't. But you can leave us alone. We've been fine without you." But Marcus could see the cracks in her armor, the exhaustion behind her defiance. His daughters were inside. And he was going to fight for them, fight for all of them, whether Sarah wanted his help or not. "I'm not going anywhere, Sarah," Marcus said quietly, his breath creating clouds in the frigid air. "Those are my daughters in there, and I've already missed 7 years. I won't miss another day." Sarah's eyes flashed with anger. "You don't get to decide that. You gave up any rights to them when you walked away without a word. I made a mistake, the biggest mistake of my life. But I'm here now, and I want to fix this. Some things can't be fixed with money, Marcus. Those girls don't know you exist. What am I supposed to tell them? That their father is the man who made me organize garbage for food?" The words hit their target, and Marcus flinched. "I didn't recognize you that night. It was dark. You looked poor," Sarah finished. "I looked like someone beneath your notice. And that's exactly who I am to you, isn't it? Someone you can dismiss when convenient and rescue when your conscience bothers you." Through the thin apartment door, they could hear the girls' voices. Emma asking Lucy to help with a puzzle, Lucy's patient explanation about matching colors. His daughters, living their lives completely unaware that their father stood just feet away, desperate to know them. "Let me help with the rent," Marcus said. "You don't have to tell them who I am yet, but let me make sure they have a home." Sarah's laugh was hollow. "And then what? You swoop in like some savior, throw money at our problems and expect us to be grateful. That's not how this works. Then tell me how it works. Tell me what you need." For the first time, Sarah's composure cracked slightly. "What I needed was 8 years ago, Marcus. I needed you to stay when I begged you to listen. I needed you to answer your phone when I called crying at 2 in the morning. I needed you to be there when the doctor said I might lose one of the babies during a complicated pregnancy." Each revelation was another blow. "You almost lost one of them?" "Lucy. She was breech, cord around her neck. I was alone in that hospital for 3 days, terrified I was going to lose my daughter because I was too stressed, too broke, too everything." Tears finally spilled down Sarah's cheeks. "Do you know what it's like to hold one baby while praying the other survives, all while knowing their father doesn't even know they exist?" Marcus felt his own tears threatening. "I'm so sorry, Sarah. If I could go back, but you can't. And now you want to waltz back into our lives because your guilty conscience finally kicked in." Sarah wiped her eyes angrily. "I won't let you hurt them the way you hurt me. I would never hurt them. You already have. Every birthday party where other kids asked about their dad, every Father's Day at school, every time they wondered why they weren't worth staying for, you've been hurting them their entire lives. The apartment door opened suddenly, and Emma peeked out, her grey eyes, so much like his own, wide with curiosity. "Mama, why are you crying?" Sarah immediately crouched down to Emma's level, forcing a smile. "I'm okay, sweetheart. This is just a friend from work. Go back inside and help Lucy with the puzzle." Emma looked at Marcus with the frank assessment only children possess. "Are you the reason Mama's sad?" The question pierced Marcus's heart, out of the mouths of babes. Your mama and I are just talking about grown-up things." "Grown-ups cry too much," Emma said matter-of-factly, then disappeared back inside. Sarah stood, her protective instincts fully activated. "You need to leave, now." "Sarah, please." "No." Her voice was firm, final. "I've spent 7 years building a life for those girls without you. I've worked multiple jobs, gone without sleep, sacrificed everything to make sure they felt loved and secure. I won't let you destroy that because you suddenly decided you want to play father." Marcus pulled out his phone and showed her his contacts. "This is my personal number. When you're ready to talk, really talk about what's best for Emma and Lucy, call me. I'll wait. Don't hold your breath." "I will if I have to." Marcus turned to leave, then paused. "Sarah, that night at the dumpster, I may not have recognized your face in the dark, but I should have recognized your heart. You've always been the strongest person I know. Our daughters are lucky to have you as their mother." He walked away before she could respond, but he heard the soft sob she tried to stifle. As he got in his car, Marcus saw Emma and Lucy's faces pressed against the apartment window, watching the strange man who had made their mama cry. For the second time in 8 years, Marcus Sterling was walking away from Sarah Chen. But this time, he was determined to find a way back. That night, unable to sleep, Marcus called the number he'd been avoiding for 3 years. "Marcus?" His mother's voice was instantly alert despite the late hour. "Darling, what's wrong?" "Mom," he said, his voice breaking on the word, "I think I need to come home." "Of course, darling. You're always welcome here. What happened?" "I found out I'm a father. I have 2 daughters and I've missed their entire lives because I was too much of a coward to face love when I had it." Eleanor Sterling was quiet for a long moment. "Come home, son. We have a lot to talk about." The Sterling family estate in Lake Forest sat on 20 acres of manicured grounds, its Georgian colonial architecture a monument to old money and older traditions. As Marcus drove through the wrought-iron gates for the first time in 3 years, memories flooded back, childhood Christmases, family dinners, the suffocating weight of expectations that had driven him to build his empire and lose his soul in the process. Eleanor Sterling met him at the front door, elegant even at 72 in her silk robe and pearls. Her silver hair was perfectly coiffed despite the late hour, and her blue eyes, so different from his own grey ones, were filled with concern. "You look terrible, darling," she said, embracing him tightly. "Come in. I'll make coffee." The mansion's interior hadn't changed. Persian rugs, oil paintings of stern ancestors, furniture that had been in the family for generations. Marcus followed his mother to the kitchen, a surprisingly warm space that had always been her domain, despite employing a full staff. "Now then," Eleanor said, busying herself with an expensive espresso machine. "Tell me about these granddaughters I apparently have." Marcus sat heavily at the marble island, where he'd done homework as a boy. "Their names are Emma and Lucy. They're 7 years old and they're beautiful, and they have no idea I exist. And their mother, Sarah Chen. You remember her. I brought her to a few family functions before I ruined everything." Eleanor's hands stilled on the coffee cups, the lovely girl who planned charity events. "The one who made you laugh for the first time since your father died?" Marcus nodded miserably. "I left her 8 years ago because I thought love would make me weak. She was pregnant with my children, and I was too focused on business to listen when she tried to tell me. Eleanor set a perfect cup of coffee in front of her son, then sat across from him. Marcus, darling, you are many things. Brilliant, driven, successful, but you've never been stupid. So explain to me how you managed to be so catastrophically idiotic about the most important thing in life. The question was delivered with Eleanor's characteristic blend of love and brutal honesty. Marcus had forgotten how his mother could cut straight to the heart of any matter. I was scared, he admitted. After Dad died, I watched you struggle to keep the business going, watched you sacrifice everything for family loyalty. I thought, if I let myself love Sarah completely, if I chose her over ambition, I'd end up weak and broken like me. Eleanor's voice was dangerously quiet. Marcus realized his mistake too late. Mom, I didn't mean... Your father built Sterling Industries, but I'm the one who kept it alive after his heart attack. I raised you as a single mother while managing a company, maintaining our social obligations, and grieving the love of my life. Eleanor's eyes flashed. If that's what you call weak and broken, then perhaps you've misunderstood what strength actually looks like. You're right. I'm sorry, After Dad died, I was so afraid of losing control, of depending on someone who might leave. So you left first. Eleanor's expression softened. Oh, my dear boy, love isn't about control. It's about choosing to be vulnerable with someone worth the risk. They sat in silence while Marcus processed her words. Outside the kitchen windows, snow continued falling on the gardens where he'd played as a child, before loss and ambition had hardened his heart. I saw them tonight, Marcus said finally. Emma and Lucy. They were building a snowman with Sarah, and they looked so happy, so complete. I stood across the street like a stalker, watching the life I should have been living. What do they look like? Like me. They have my eyes, my stubborn chin. Lucy especially. She has this way of tilting her head when she's thinking, just like I did at that age. Eleanor smiled softly. And like your father did, that's a sterling trait going back generations. Sarah hates me. She won't let me near them, and I don't blame her. I humiliated her, Mom. 3 nights ago, I found her going through our garbage looking for food scraps, and I made her organize trash in exchange for leftovers. I didn't even recognize the woman I once loved. Eleanor's intake of breath was sharp. Oh, Marcus. She changed her name from Chen to Williams after I left. She's been struggling alone for 7 years, working multiple jobs, in facing eviction. While I was building my empire, my daughters were 1 paycheck away from homelessness. What are you going to do? I don't know. Sarah won't accept help from me. She doesn't trust me, and why should she? I abandoned her when she needed me most. Eleanor stood and moved to the window, looking out at the snow-covered grounds. Your father proposed to me in this kitchen, she said unexpectedly. We were both 25, and he was terrified I'd say no, because I came from money, and he was just a construction worker with big dreams. Marcus looked up, surprised. He'd never heard this story. He told me he had nothing to offer except his love and his promise to work every day to deserve me. I told him that was everything. Eleanor turned back to her son. Love isn't about what you can provide, Marcus. It's about who you choose to become for the people who matter most. Sarah doesn't want me to become anything for her. She wants me to disappear. Then don't do this for Sarah. Do it for Emma and Lucy. Those little girls deserve to know their father, even if their mother isn't ready to forgive him. Marcus felt a spark of hope. How? The same way your father won me. 1 honest gesture at a time. Show Sarah who you really are, underneath all that success and pride. Show her the man I raised, the one who used to cry over injured birds and give his allowance to homeless veterans. That man has been buried under 8 years of ruthless ambition. Then dig him up, Eleanor said firmly. Because those granddaughters of mine deserve better than a stranger with a guilty conscience. They deserve a father willing to fight for them. As dawn broke over Lake Forest, Marcus Sterling sat in his childhood kitchen, finally understanding what his mother had tried to teach him years ago. True strength wasn't about protecting yourself from love. It was about having the courage to love completely, even when it might break you. Now he had to find a way to show Sarah that the man she'd once loved was still there, buried beneath years of mistakes, but ready to fight for the family he'd never known he had. Christmas Eve morning arrived with fresh snow blanketing Chicago, and Marcus Sterling had a plan. Not the corporate strategies he was famous for, but something far more terrifying, winning back the trust of the woman he'd abandoned and meeting the daughters he'd never known existed. He started at Humboldt Elementary School, where Emma and Lucy were enrolled. The building was old brick with cheerful holiday decorations, a stark contrast to the private academies Marcus had attended. He waited across the street, watching children arrive with backpacks and lunchboxes. At 8:47 a.m. he saw them. Emma and Lucy walked hand in hand with Sarah, all three bundled in worn but clean winter coats. The girls chattered excitedly, their voices carrying across the quiet street, and Marcus felt his chest tighten with longing. Sarah paused at the school steps, kneeling to adjust Emma's scarf and whisper something that made both girls giggle. The tender moment was so natural, so full of love, that Marcus understood what he had lost. Not just birthdays and holidays, but the 1,000 tiny interactions that made a family. After Sarah left, Marcus approached the school. The secretary was a kind woman in her 60s who looked up with professional courtesy. "I'd like to make an anonymous donation," Marcus said, placing an envelope on her desk containing a $50,000 cashier's check. "For children who might need help with lunch money, school supplies. This is incredibly generous, Mr. Sterling. We have several families who could use this help." That afternoon, Marcus visited the local grocery store where Sarah sometimes shopped. He spent 2 hours arranging to anonymously pay off layaway accounts of single mothers, specifically targeting items for families with 7-year-old twins. At midnight on Christmas morning, Marcus crept to apartment 1B and left 2 bags of presents, art supplies, books, educational games, with a note. "For Emma and Lucy, from someone who believes in Christmas miracles." He was walking back when he heard Sarah's voice. "I know it's you." Sarah stood on the porch in her robe, arms wrapped against the cold. "The anonymous donation to school, the mysterious benefactor who paid my grocery layaway. You think I'm stupid? I just wanted to help without causing problems. By stalking my daughters. By trying to make sure they have a good Christmas. I know you don't want my money, but they're my daughters too. Stop. You can't buy your way into their lives." They stood in falling snow, 2 people who had once shared everything now separated by 8 years of pain. "Then tell me how it does work," he said desperately. Sarah looked at him for a long moment. "Come inside. But if you wake them, if you upset them, you leave immediately." Inside the small apartment, Sarah showed him a photo album. "This is the day they were born," she said, showing him herself in a hospital bed, exhausted but radiant, holding 2 tiny babies. "I was terrified, alone, but also complete." Page after page revealed the life Marcus had missed. First steps, first words, birthday parties with homemade cakes. Sarah narrated each memory with love and pain, sharing the most precious thing she had. "This is last Christmas," Sarah said, showing Emma and Lucy in matching pajamas. "I worked 3 double shifts to afford those presents. It wasn't much, but they were thrilled." Marcus looked at the sparse gifts in the photo, realizing his daughters had been happy with less than he spent on a business lunch. "I'm so sorry," he said, voice breaking, "for all of it, for leaving, for missing this, for not recognizing you. But you can't undo 8 years with apologies." Sarah said. "Those girls don't know you exist." "I know, but I want to try. I want to be part of their lives." Sarah studied his face in the Christmas tree's dim light. "If, and I mean if, I were to consider letting you meet them, it would be on my terms. They would know you as a friend first. You would earn their trust slowly. And the first time you hurt them, you're gone forever." Marcus nodded eagerly. "Anything." "We'll see. Now go home. I need to think." As Marcus drove away, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Hope. Tomorrow, he might get the chance to meet his daughters. Behind him, he thought he saw Sarah watching from the window. New Year's Day brought unseasonable warmth as Marcus sat in Lincoln Park Zoo's cafe, waiting. Sarah had called with a simple message. "Noon, Lincoln Park Zoo, near the polar bear exhibit." Marcus had arrived an hour early, unable to eat or focus on anything except meeting his daughters. He'd changed clothes 4 times, settling on jeans and a sweater, the most approachable outfit in his wardrobe. At 11:58, he saw them. Emma and Lucy walked between Sarah and an older woman, both girls animated about their zoo visit. They wore matching purple winter coats that looked brand new. "Girls," Sarah said, stopping near the polar bears, "I'd like you to meet my friend Marcus. He's joining us today." 2 pairs of grey eyes, so much like his own, looked up with curiosity. Emma, slightly taller and outgoing, spoke first. "Are you the man who made Mama cry on Christmas?" Sarah's cheeks flushed. "Emma, that's not polite." "It's okay," Marcus said, crouching to their level. "Yes, I made your mama sad, and I'm very sorry. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes when talking about important things." Lucy, quieter but analytical, tilted her head in that familiar, sterling way. "What kind of mistakes?" "The kind where you say things without thinking about how they'll make someone feel, but I'm trying to be better." Emma studied him intensely. "Do you like polar bears?" "I do. Do you?" "They're my favorite. Lucy likes penguins better, but I think polar bears are braver." As they walked through the zoo, Marcus discovered pieces of his daughter's personalities. Emma was fearless, pressing against glass barriers and asking detailed questions. Lucy was observant, noticing subtle details others missed. "Lucy wants to be a veterinarian." Sarah mentioned when Lucy spent 10 minutes sketching a sleeping tiger. "Emma changes her mind daily." "What did you want to be at their age?" Emma asked. "I wanted to build houses, big, beautiful houses where families could be happy together." "Do you still build houses?" "Sort of, but I think I forgot about the happy together part." Lucy looked up from sketching. "Maybe you can remember now." The statement hit Marcus like a physical blow. After 3 hours, they stopped for hot chocolate. "Can Marcus come to our apartment?" Emma asked. "I want to show him my polar bear picture." Sarah hesitated. "Maybe another time." "But I worked really hard on it," Emma persisted. "I'd love to see it, but only if your mama thinks it's okay." Sarah looked between hopeful faces. 15 minutes, just to see pictures. In the apartment, Emma showed her drawings while Lucy shyly shared her book about a girl who finds a lost dog and must decide whether to keep it or find its real family. "What do you think she should do?" Marcus asked. "Find its real family," Lucy said, "because they probably miss the dog and love it, even if they made mistakes letting it get lost." As he prepared to leave, Lucy gave him a small drawing of the 3 animals they'd seen, polar bear, penguin and tiger, arranged in a circle. "They're friends," Lucy explained. "Even though they're different, they can still be friends." Emma surprised him with a brief hug. "Will we see you again?" Marcus looked at Sarah, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. "I hope so." "Good. Next time, I want to show you the butterfly exhibit. Mama says butterflies only live for a short time, so we have to appreciate them while they're here." Walking to his car, Lucy's drawing in his hands, Marcus thought about butterflies and second chances. For the first time in 8 years, He felt like he might deserve a place in someone's life. February brought Chicago's harshest weather, but Marcus had never been warmer. Over the past month, he'd seen Emma and Lucy 6 times, always with Sarah present, always as Mama's friend Marcus. He'd learned Emma was left-handed like him, that Lucy hummed while drawing like his mother, and both girls had inherited the sterling stubborn streak. Being a parent was simultaneously the easiest and most terrifying thing he'd ever done. Today was different. Sarah had called with urgency. "Lucy's sick. High fever. Can't get her to the pediatrician until tomorrow. I don't have anyone else to call." Marcus left a board meeting and drove straight over with medicine and soup. He found Sarah pacing while Lucy lay listlessly on the couch, her bright eyes dulled with fever. "She's been like this since midnight," Sarah said, exhausted. "Her temperature won't break. I'm scared, Marcus." It was the first time Sarah had used his name without formality in 8 years. "Hey, sweetheart," he said softly to Lucy. "Not feeling good?" Lucy nodded weakly. "My head hurts and I'm really cold." Emma hovered nearby with obvious worry. "I tried to share my warmth, but it didn't work." For hours, Marcus did things he'd never imagined, taking temperatures, encouraging sips of broth, reading stories in funny voices. Sarah dozed fitfully, finally allowing herself to rest. "Marcus," Lucy called softly during one of Sarah's naps. "Yes." "Sweetheart, are you going to leave when I get better?" The question pierced him. "Why would you think that?" "Because that's what daddies do. Sarah at school told me her daddy left when she got sick once." Marcus felt tears burning. His 7-year-old was already anticipating abandonment. "Lucy, I promise I'm not going anywhere." Getting sick doesn't make people leave. Sometimes grown-ups leave for other reasons, but never because someone they care about needs help. "Do you care about me?" "More than I can possibly explain." Lucy reached out with fever-warm fingers. "I care about you too." That evening, after Lucy's fever broke, Marcus found himself alone with Sarah in the kitchen. "Thank you," Sarah said simply, "for today, for staying. Thank you for trusting me with them." Sarah poured coffee and sat across from him. "What happened to you 8 years ago? The Marcus I fell in love with would never have walked away." Marcus stared into his coffee. "My father died when I was 16, heart attack at his desk, working 18-hour days. I watched my mother struggle while grieving him, and I decided loving someone completely was too dangerous. So you left me to protect me." "I left you to protect myself," Marcus corrected. "I was terrified that if I loved you completely, I might lose you. And neither of us would survive it. I would have survived losing you, Marcus, but I might not have survived you choosing to leave. Watching you today, seeing how you've raised our daughters alone, you're the strongest person I've ever known. I was an idiot to think you needed protecting from love." "Our daughters," Sarah repeated softly. "You said our daughters. They've been ours since the day they were born. I just wasn't there to know it." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Marcus continued, "but I'm asking for a real chance to be their father." "They don't even know you're their father." "Then maybe it's time to tell them." From the living room, "Mama, is Lucy okay?" "Yes, sweetheart," Sarah called back. "She's fine." "Stay tonight," Sarah said quietly. "Sleep on the couch in case her fever returns. And tomorrow, we'll talk about telling them who you really are." Marcus nodded, not trusting his voice. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, Emma and Lucy would learn their truth. But tonight, his daughter was safe, and he was here to make sure she stayed that way. The conversation came on a sunny Saturday in March. Sarah had spent the week preparing Emma and Lucy, and now all 4 sat in the small living room that had become Marcus's second home. "Girls," Sarah said gently, "do you remember how we've talked about your daddy, and how I told you he didn't know about you when you were born?" Emma and Lucy nodded solemnly, mature beyond their 7 years. "Well," Sarah continued, voice steady. Marcus is your daddy. The silence was deafening. Emma's eyes widened with shock, while Lucy's face showed surprise, confusion, and something like relief. You're our daddy? Emma asked, voice small and uncertain. Marcus's throat felt tight as he nodded. Yes, sweetheart, I'm your father. But where were you? Lucy asked with characteristic directness. Why weren't you here when we were little? This was the question Marcus had prepared for, requiring him to explain the inexplicable to children who deserved honesty. I made a very big mistake, he said carefully. When your mama was going to have you, I got scared. Not scared of you, I could never be scared of you, but scared of being a daddy because I didn't think I'd be good at it. So you left, Emma said matter-of-factly. I left, Marcus confirmed. And that was wrong. Your mama tried to tell me about you, but I wasn't listening. Lucy tilted her head in that thinking pose. Did you know we existed? No, sweetheart. I didn't know until a few months ago. If I had known, I would have been here for your first steps and first words and every birthday. But you know about us now, Emma said, her 7-year-old brain working through the logic, so you can be here for the rest of our birthdays. The easy forgiveness in her voice was more than he deserved and everything he wanted. If you want me to be, he said, if you think you'd like me as your daddy. The girls looked at each other with wordless twin communication. Then Lucy spoke. We always wanted a daddy, but we didn't think we could have one because Mama said our daddy lived far away. I wasn't far away, Marcus said, voice breaking. I was right here in Chicago, but I didn't know to look for you. That's my fault, not your mama's. Emma had been quiet. Are you going to live with us now, like other daddies do? Marcus glanced at Sarah, seeing uncertainty in her eyes. That's something your mama and I need to talk about. Right now, the important thing is that you know I love you both very much. We want you to be our daddy, Lucy said with quiet certainty. But we don't want Mama to be sad anymore. Sad? Marcus looked at Sarah, who was fighting tears. Sometimes Mama cries when she thinks we're sleeping, Emma explained. I think she's lonely sometimes. But you could be happy and have help, Lucy said with 7-year-old logic. Marcus makes you smile different than you smile at us. Marcus felt his heart stop. These incredible girls were asking him to make their mother happy, to complete their family. How do we know you won't leave again? Emma asked, more worried than she'd initially let on. Marcus got on his knees at their eye level. Because I spent 8 years without you, and it was the loneliest, saddest 8 years of my life. Now that I know what it feels like to be your daddy, I could never leave you again. Never. Promise? Lucy asked. I promise with all my heart. Emma threw herself into his arms, followed by Lucy, and Marcus held both daughters while they cried. Over their heads, he met Sarah's eyes and saw hope, not just for their daughters, but for all of them. So, Emma said, pulling back seriously, does this mean you're going to marry Mama? Marcus felt his cheeks heat while Sarah made a strangled laugh-sob sound. Marriage is something grown-ups decide together, Marcus said carefully, when they love each other and want to be a family forever. Don't you love Mama? Lucy asked. Marcus looked at Sarah. Yes, I love your Mama very much. And Mama loves you, Emma announced. I can tell because she gets happy nervous when you come over. Sarah's face turned red. Emma Rose Williams, it's true. You fix your hair and put on lipstick. So you can get married and we can be a real family, Lucy clapped. We're already a real family, Sarah said firmly. The 4 of us, right here. Marriage doesn't make a family real. Love does. What do you think, Mama? Marcus asked, looking at Sarah. Is there room in this family for a daddy who's still learning? Sarah looked at her daughters' hopeful faces, then at Marcus, and for the first time in 8 years allowed herself to imagine a future where she wasn't alone. I think, she said slowly, we can figure it out together. 6 months later, Marcus stood in his penthouse, packing the last box. He was moving to a 3-bedroom house in Humboldt Park, 2 blocks from Emma and Lucy's school and walking distance from the apartment where he'd found his family. Are you sure about this? Rebecca Martinez asked, reviewing paperwork. In 6 months, she'd watched her boss transform from ruthless corporate titan into something she'd never seen, a man at peace. I've never been more sure, Marcus replied, taping expensive suits he wouldn't need. The house is perfect, big enough for all of us, with a yard for the girls, close to their friends. The past months had been a delicate dance of rebuilding trust. Marcus attended every soccer game, school play, parent-teacher conference. He'd learned to braid hair badly, navigate 7-year-old friendships, and read the same story 14 times without losing enthusiasm. More importantly, he'd learned patience with Sarah. She was warming gradually, allowing small intimacies, lingering looks, moments when their hands touched while helping with homework. The merger with Henderson Industries is complete, Rebecca reported. The board approved your proposal to create a charitable foundation focused on single-parent families. Marcus smiled. Good. Emma suggested we help mamas like ours used to be. Lucy wants to make sure kids have enough food. Sometimes 7-year-olds see solutions adults miss. His phone rang, Sarah's ringtone. Marcus, can you come over? There's something I need to tell you. And the girls are at their friend's house. 20 minutes later, Marcus sat on Sarah's couch, studying her nervous expression. I have something for you, Sarah said, disappearing into her bedroom. She returned with a small, wrapped box. Inside was a key. It's to the house, Sarah said quietly. Our house. If you still want to live with us. Marcus's heart hammered. Are you sure? I'm terrified, Sarah admitted. But I'm also tired of being afraid. The girls ask every day when you're moving in, and She took a shaky breath. I wake up every morning hoping you'll be there. I fall asleep wishing you were holding me. I love you, Marcus. I never stopped loving you. Marcus set the key aside and cupped her face in his hands. I love you too. I've loved you since we were 21, and I'll love you until I'm 91. I was just too much of a coward to admit it. He kissed her then, soft and sweet, tasting tears and hope and 8 years of longing. When they broke apart, Sarah was crying. The girls are sleeping at Emma's friend's house tonight, she whispered against his lips. Sarah, stay, please. I don't want to spend another night alone. That evening, as Chicago settled into darkness around them, Marcus held Sarah close and felt the final piece of his broken heart slide into place. They talked until dawn about dreams and fears, about the future they would build together. I want to marry you, Marcus said as the first light crept through the windows. Not because the girls asked, not to make everything official, but because I can't imagine my life without you, any of you. Sarah's smile was radiant. Yes, 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 I'll marry you. Yes, we'll be a family. Yes, to all of it. When Emma and Lucy returned the next morning, they found Marcus making pancakes in their kitchen, humming off-key, while Sarah laughed at his terrible cooking skills. Does this mean Marcus lives here now? Emma asked hopefully. It means, Sarah said, pulling both girls close, we're exactly what we've always been, a family, just a little bigger now. Lucy examined the scene critically. Good. Now can we get a dog? Marcus and Sarah looked at each other and burst into laughter. Their family was complete, but apparently their adventures were just beginning. 1 year later, Marcus Sterling stood at the altar of a small Chicago church, watching the love of his life walk down the aisle in a simple white dress. Escorted by 2 giggling 8-year-old flower girls who couldn't stop smiling, Emma and Lucy had insisted on matching purple dresses and had spent the morning braiding flowers into each other's hair. They took their roles as co-maids of honor very seriously, though Lucy had whispered loudly during rehearsal that she hoped the ceremony wouldn't be too mushy. As Sarah reached him, Marcus felt tears threatening. The woman walking toward him wasn't the desperate mother he'd found digging through garbage 18 months ago, or even the guarded single mom who'd barely trusted him with supervised visits. This was Sarah Chen, now Sarah Sterling, radiant with happiness and secure in love. "You look beautiful," he whispered as she took his hand. "So do you," she whispered back, and Emma giggled audibly from her spot beside them. The ceremony was simple but perfect. Marcus had offered to fly Sarah's extended family in from California, to book the most exclusive venue in Chicago, to spare no expense. But Sarah had wanted something intimate, their small, chosen family, a few close friends, and the community they'd built together in Humboldt Park. When the minister asked for the rings, Emma and Lucy stepped forward with matching grins. They'd insisted on presenting the rings together, Lucy whispering, "These will make it official that Marcus is our daddy forever." As Marcus slipped the wedding band onto Sarah's finger, he thought about the journey that had brought them here. The arrogant CEO who'd made a desperate woman organize garbage, the coward who'd walked away from love. The stranger who'd stood across the street watching his children play in the snow. "I promise," he said, deviating from their prepared vows, "to choose love over fear, family over success, and all of you over everything else, every day for the rest of my life." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "I promise to trust you with our hearts, to believe in second chances, and to love you through whatever comes next." When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Emma and Lucy cheered so loudly that the entire congregation burst into laughter. Marcus kissed his bride, while his daughters, their daughters, threw flower petals and shouted, "Now we're really a family!" The reception was held in the community center where Sarah had started volunteering, planning events for local families. The Sterling Foundation, funded entirely by Marcus but run by Sarah, had already helped dozens of single parents with housing, childcare, and job training. "Daddy," Lucy said during the father-daughter dance they'd insisted on, "are you happy now?" "Happier than I ever imagined possible," Marcus replied, spinning her carefully around the dance floor. "Good, because Mama told me happiness is something you choose every day, not just something that happens to you." The wisdom of 8-year-olds never ceased to amaze him. Later that evening, after the guests had gone home and Emma and Lucy were sleeping off their sugar-induced excitement at their grandma Eleanor's house, Marcus and Sarah sat on the porch of their Humboldt Park home, watching the snow fall on the yard where their daughters built snowmen and dreamed big dreams. "Any regrets?" Sarah asked, curled against his side. "Only one," Marcus said, "that it took me 8 years to find my way back to you." "Everything happened exactly when it was supposed to," Sarah said softly. "If you'd stayed 8 years ago, you would have been a different man. You might have resented us, resented having to give up your ambitions. But the man who came back to us, the one who was humble enough to organize garbage, patient enough to earn trust, brave enough to love completely, that's the man we needed." Marcus thought about that. The young man who'd left Sarah had been driven by fear and ambition. The man who'd returned had been broken by loneliness and success that meant nothing without people to share it with. "I love our life," he said simply, "even though it's messy and loud and chaotic." "Especially because it's messy and loud and chaotic," Sarah laughed, the sound carrying across their quiet neighborhood. "Wait until the twins hit their teenage years. Bring it on. After surviving corporate hostile takeovers, I think I can handle 2 teenage Sterling women." "You have no idea what you're in for," Sarah warned, but she was smiling. As they headed inside, Marcus caught sight of their family photo on the mantel, the four of them, at the zoo where he'd first met Emma and Lucy as their father. Emma was making bunny ears behind Lucy's head, while Lucy rolled her eyes in exasperation. Sarah was laughing at something Marcus had said, and he was looking at all of them like he couldn't believe they were real. It was messy and imperfect and absolutely perfect. Marcus Sterling had built an empire, accumulated wealth beyond measure, and earned the respect of Chicago's business elite. But his greatest achievement would always be this: a small house filled with laughter, a woman who'd chosen to trust him again, and two little girls who called him Daddy and meant it. Some mistakes could destroy everything, but love, real, patient, choosing each other daily love, had the power to rebuild what seemed lost forever. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, you got exactly the life you never knew you wanted. Marcus Sterling's transformation from heartless CEO to devoted father proves that true wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in the love we choose to nurture. His journey began with the ultimate humiliation, forcing a desperate mother to organize garbage for food, only to discover she was raising the children he never knew existed. Sarah's strength in raising Emma and Lucy alone for 8 years showcases the incredible resilience of single mothers who sacrifice everything for their children's happiness. The twins' immediate forgiveness and pure hearts demonstrate how children possess an innate capacity for love that adults often lose in their pursuit of success. Sarah's gradual decision to trust Marcus again wasn't weakness, but the ultimate act of courage, choosing hope over fear after years of abandonment. The story reminds us that some mistakes seem unforgivable, yet love has the extraordinary power to heal even the deepest wounds when paired with genuine remorse and consistent action. Marcus learned that being a father isn't about providing material wealth, but about showing up every day with patience, dedication, and unconditional love. Their blended family proves that it's never too late to choose love over fear, connection over isolation, and family over personal ambition. The greatest success in life isn't building an empire, but creating a home where everyone feels valued, protected, and deeply loved. Sometimes the most beautiful families are born from second chances, forgiveness, and the courage to rebuild what was once broken.